thought they were going to take it from my stomach.
Oh,
There you go.
And I thought, oh my God,
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
have
I'm gonna have like
a stomach. What is it called?
For me.
A stomach. Oh, tummy tuck.
A tummy tuck.
I'm gonna have tummy tuck.
Plus a breast job.
Job
But then he
breast.
looked at me and said, we can't do that. If you have 2 sections, so we're taking it out of your back. Well, there goes my golf
And
game.
let's put one in me.
See?
Wait, here's your notes.
I can't do this.
I know.
Look.
We're gonna be
Look
bad.
at him.
I know.
I can't do this. I'm pretty good at what I do. I can't do this.
All right, we'll put it into the.
I've decided not to do the other one.
What?
Mark came home and we tried to pray.
All right, no, wait a minute. And then all of a sudden,
I decided I only do one. I figured nobody nobody would notice.
Try to cut in.
Nobody would notice that I was missing one.
All right, so then go back. Just say, okay.
For the longest time,
I'm so
nobody
glad
did.
I'm here.
I'm so glad I'm here. But wait a minute.
Until this one
And then
started
after
to
your
sag.
plastic surgery, the thing I want to end it with
Yes.
is that with your breast cancer, always do self-exams and mammograms. Self-exams, mammograms. Fill your breast once a month and have those mammograms. And without... So all I want to say is thank you for coming, and my brother's the biggest asshole I've ever met in my life. And I want, without further ado, here's Sally.
All right, you gotta help me.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Without further
Thank you, Margaret. She's number 10.
Thank you.
ado.
All right. Get her, Mark.
Life is pleasant, death is peaceful. It's the transitions that are troublesome. So what we're going to talk about today is chronic illness, terminal illness, dying, death, and grieving. And I like to call all of these transitions in life.
Nobody cares.
And when you are diagnosed with a chronic illness, which is usually heart disease, diabetes, obesity, kidney disease, these are chronic illnesses that can be managed with
You need to look
treatment.
more up in the air.
When you have treatment, sometimes you get the side effects. It's doable, but your life has changed. You're in a different transition now. You've got to deal with your health issues. Now, when the doctor gets to a point where
He wants to feel your
there's
titties.
no more treatment, the treatments aren't working, then you'll be diagnosed as terminal.
And then
Terminal means that usually
you're dead.
there is 6 months, you have 6 months or less,
You should spend at least
that the
about 5 minutes
disease
about
will
that.
progressively get worse and there's nothing more they can
Say,
do.
my name's Sally.
So what the doctor will usually tell you
She should tell
is
you her
to
size
go on hospice.
of her.
Hospice is so underused.
And she
Usually
put, like, your,
people do not utilize hospice until it's about 2 weeks before they die. Now, hospice treats every area of a terminal disease. They treat the family along with the patient. There's 2 different types, palliative care and hospice. And the difference between the 2 is usually insurance. With palliative care, you could still receive treatment, even though it's to no avail. It's not going to work. But if you desire treatment, you can get it. Miracles happen, and we know that. So you do the best you can. But this is the time to get things in order while you are still able to make good decisions for yourself. All of us in this room are love beings. Did you know that? We're all love beings. Now, we could walk in a room. We don't need to receive love. We don't need to give love. We're just love. And because we're all love beings, we're able to help each other through these processes. When a woman starts labor, and God has the way to bring, there's no way of stopping labor. The baby's coming. We run towards birth. We're there. We can't wait. We want to see that baby. And when somebody is dying, we run away. We need to start running to death. We need to start being there, an active participant. Because when you're terminal, you're not dying. The dying process, God, in His infinite mercy, has set it up so that our bodies shut down. in a very peaceful way. And usually when your kidneys shut down, you go into what is called a uremic coma. And then the heart goes, different organs shut down. And there's no stopping the dying process once it starts. And there's no stopping the birth process when it starts. These are vessels which carry our spirit. These get old, they get sick, and they die. But just as I'm standing here talking to you today, if I shed this vessel, and mine's getting old, if I shed this vessel, I'd still be here. If we all shed our vessels, we'd all still be here. That's our spirit. We're love beings. Come into this world knowing nothing but love. So when the dying process starts, there's no turning back. But before that starts, you'll have time, if God grants you that when you're terminal, to make some decisions for yourself. And this is where I want to talk about advanced directives and, most important, a living will. These are all the wishes that you want. This is everything that you want done for your end-of-life issues. The doctors love it. They love it when they get handed those advanced directives because they know exactly what to do. There's nothing worse than families fighting when somebody is dying over hydration, nutrition, and pain management. Those are the three most important factors. And those things need to be addressed, written down, so that there's no fighting. And the doctor can follow your wishes. This is also a time that you can plan whatever you want. It's all up to you. That's the living will. Okay, so you take all these things. You can even go to the funeral home, plan your funerals. The funeral homes have these little books that I have for you. Well, I don't have them for you today. But you can go to any funeral home, and you all have one in the neighborhood. Go talk to them. These are Nebraska's. You can take it right off the internet, advanced directives. There's forms you can fill out that the doctor will know your final wishes. When you go to the nursing home, you can fill out these books. It's got everything in here from what you want to wear to where you're going to be buried to what songs you want played, to make sure that you have your wills. There's nothing worse than families standing there at the time of death when somebody's dying going, where's mom's will? What did dad want? I've had family members that have been standing there while their mother's taking their last breath, and the one daughter says, well, we better go get mom's blue dress to the cleaners. And the other daughter said, no, mom is not wearing the blue dress. And it turned into an argument. But what they were doing is they were going through anticipatory grief. Now, that's high anxiety. Family members don't know what to do. There's nothing for them to follow. But if they have this and your advanced directives, then you've taken care of everything for your family. And as you need them most, now they can just concentrate on your transition, you going to heaven. My father passed away in 1981, and that's the book I wrote, Someone I Love is Dying. And my mother was with him. When he was dying, he said he was in a different dimension, that he had seen his mother. This is the point where I'm going to start talking about deathbed visions. Dr. Carla Willis Brandon has done tremendous research on this. And on my website, she also has a book called One Last Hug. And I recommend that to anybody if you're interested in the topic, because I believe that nobody dies alone. They come for us. God in his infinite mercy. Even our guardian angels are with us. We learned that when we were children. They've been with us all our lives. They help get us over. But God also sends, people see angels, religious figures. They see relatives, pets, and they talk about the people that they see. Now, as a younger nurse, I used to disregard that. I thought, oh, it's the medicine or they're just hallucinating. But over the years, it has happened over and over and over again. And with all the research that has gone on from near-death experiences too, and people that have crossed over and have seen heaven and have come back to tell us about these things, with the technology we have now, we can revive people who come back and share the information that God has given us. Now, these deathbed visions, I believe we don't die alone. We need to start paying attention to the dying when they talk. They have a lot to teach us. Now, if we've addressed hydration, nutrition, and pain management, then all we need to do at this point is just be with our loved one. Now, the reason that I'm here today, I want to share, like I talked to you about my father. He died comfortably in my mother's arm. My mother died right here in my arm. And when she was dying, she was an LPN, and she had had surgery. She was diabetic, and they had surgery and had amputated her leg. Well, because she was diabetic, it was not healing, and it was very painful. My mother went into congestive heart failure and renal failure. So that was a matter of time. Her body was starting to shut down. I said, Mom, you're dying. I said, do you want to start some morphine? She knew what I meant. So I went to the nurse's station and said, what's the legal dose of morphine that could be administered to a patient in this house? And she told me, so we got the order and we started the morphine. Now, my mother was anticipating going to heaven, but she laid in bed, opened one eye, looked at me and said, but I'm still here. I'm still here. And I said, Mom, go see Dad. You're going to heaven. Jesus is going to be there. These are all the things you taught us. And she said, you know what? When you get to this point, you hope it's there. And then a couple hours later, she started having periods of not breathing. And I grabbed a hold of her and we looked at each other and then eyes wide open, took a big breath, and she was gone. She went home. But there's an energy in a room when somebody leaves us. And I seen it also with my niece, Michelle. She was 40 years old and had cancer. And she was terminal. And then the process of dying. She was in the process of dying. So Michelle went into renal failure and was like a limp rag on the bed. There was no response. It was just a matter of time before the heart is a very strong organ for that to give up. Well, when Michelle was in bed, she sat up, opened her eyes, put her arms out, and collapsed back down to the bed. Somebody came and got her. Now, before she left us and transitioned to heaven, she was talking to people in the room. My sister Sandy used to think I was crazy when I would talk about people and what they would talk about when they were dying. But she was there that day, and she heard Michelle talking to people, telling right behind Margaret. She said, there's a beautiful woman. Look at her nails. No, I'm not ready to go yet. I've got more packing to do. I'm not leaving yet. And she was talking to somebody. And Sandy came out in the hallway, my sister-in-law, and said, you know, I wouldn't have believed it unless I seen it. And the reason that I'm here today is because of my husband, my late husband, Paul. And when he transitioned, it does it every time, Margaret, when I talk about Paul. The phone goes off somehow, some way. Anyway.
It's weird.
All right, my husband, Paul. And he was terminal. And when we went to Florida, it was on our bucket list. He woke up one morning, the night before, he had a cigar, he had his beer, we were on the ocean. He said, Sally, there's nothing more powerful than me and you but that ocean out there. And he was from New England, so he got to be at the ocean and smell the salt water. He had a wonderful night. The next morning, he woke up hemorrhaging. We knew that the process had begun. There was no turning back. Paul was dying. So at the hospital, as Paul was taking his last breaths, we were taking them together. Oh, Paul, you've got one more. Okay, let's breathe that out. And then he'd stop breathing. Oh, he'd have another breath. And I was telling him how much I loved him. He had told me, thank you for giving me a good life. Our marriage had gone full circle. And then the process began. He was leaving. We were looking at each other. And there was a pull in his eyes. And I couldn't go with him, but I knew he was leaving. And the love and the passion. He left. But he wasn't alone. Somebody came and got him. And God, in his infinite mercy, makes sure that we all have help when it's time to go home. So I believe when I was looking at Paul, I could almost see the passion of Jesus. That I love you, I don't want to go, but these vessels give out. They get sick, they get full of disease. We're not here forever. Paul and me trusted in God, and we knew where he was going. So before he left, we were able to make plans for, we talked about what needed to be done after he was gone, how life would be for me. Paul was still here, but we had the anticipatory grief together. And it was very important that we did that because when I was on my own after he died, I still remembered everything he told me. And then after he died, I could go to the funeral home because he took care of all of that. So when I went there, I knew everything was done. I knew all Paul's advance directives. I knew everything that he wanted. So it made it a lot easier. And then when people went to the funeral director and wanted things changed, he said, no, I've talked to Paul. This is how it's going to be. So we also went to the cemetery and picked out our plots, and we fought about where we were going to be buried. And now I remember that memory every time I go to his grave, him standing by that tree going, why don't you get over here and give me a kiss before we're under there? So it's those kind of things that you do together as a couple to plan, because we knew that he was terminal. We anticipated his death. And I could grieve with him even before he left. So, like I said, we're all love beings. And what we try to do at the end is wiggle out of these bodies. Our spirit needs to wiggle out. And how nice it is when we have loved ones around us and things are taken care of. And all you got to do is take care of those things, put it in a folder, stick it in a file cabinet, and go on living. And you don't even have to pull this out unless you want to make some changes. But you know that it's there for your kids or your loved one, whoever you put in charge of your last wishes. And that's as simple as it is. We are such a death-denying society. And I want to blow the lid off this death thing. It's not so bad. Labor hurts. Babies aren't that pretty when they come into the world. And we have to suffer through death too. But we have morphine. And the Catholic Church not only condones morphine, they recommend it. They recommend using morphine. People used to think we had to suffer to get into heaven, and the more we suffered, the better we were. No. There's mercy. And hospice utilizes all of these, the pain medication. You don't want to be making decisions of tube feedings and hydration, water. I've seen families come in when somebody's dying, trying to put roast beef, mashed potatoes, and water, and people are choking. When the kidneys shut down, there is no circulation. So everything just pools in the body. God has a way it's like it numbs your brain. You don't need to eat. You're dying. The body's getting ready to shed. And then, like I said, you'll wiggle out of this, and it's a struggle sometimes. But then that spirit goes home. So my brother's standing behind me right now, and he's bugging the fuck out of me. And that's just the way it is. But there's some advanced directives, forms that you can have. And also, here's the screen piece of paper that addresses end-of-life issues here. Now, like I said, chronic illness is treatable. It's treatable until maybe the body's, the disease progresses and there is no more treatment. Doctors are here to save lives. They're here to treat. When there's no more treatment, we have hospice or palliative care. Utilize it. And as soon as the doctor tells you you're terminal, there's nothing more you can do. Work with that doctor. At that point, you're in charge. You tell the doctor what you want, and he'll listen. So, in closing, because I know I'm going to say a lot more without my brother behind me, just take care of things today. And even if you're not terminal, or even if you have a chronic illness, or you're older, anybody in their 60s should have this folder ready for the family. And it's how you plan and take care of things today to make sure that your transitions matter. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good evening. God bless you all.
Give me your mark. And I say such beautiful things. What was my brother behind me?
Yeah, but he didn't even say one word. He was over there putting oranges in his boob and stuff with me.
Okay, let's see how we look.
All right.
How do you do this?
Okay,
Gotta go up here.
that one. You showed me this. I don't know. How do you stop?
Stop it. Is it down here?
No. Where's my glasses?
Or is it up there?
No, we stopped.
Use this.
Stopped.